I'm Melville-brown from Baking Blind. I've had a great week here in Melbourne, exploring the diversity of people and their cooking styles. Cooking last week with Fred, I learned just a little about the indigenous Aboriginal culture.
Because you can get all the seeds out and grind them down.
But this week has given me more insight into equality and diversity in Australia. There's some pretty uncomfortable history about the treatment of the indigenous people here. They weren't legally people until 1967. Staggeringly, they were categorised as flora and fauna. The lost generation of Aboriginal children removed from their families has broken cultural ties, which means it can be very difficult for them to make claims to their historic land. Much of their history has never been written because their artefacts, their spoken chronicles and their way of life has been lost. But Australia is trying to rebuild its reputation for humanity, equality and diversity. There's much public concern about the refugees being detained on distant islands. And people are saying yes to legalising same-sex marriage. Cuisines, cultures and communities represent people here in Melbourne from all over the world. A typical example of real integration is this long-established Greek restaurant. It's owned by a Turk and run by a Hungarian. So it's no wonder that Eurobites attracts an equally diverse clientele. And we met the diversity of young men and women serving in the Australian Defence Forces. I spent a morning at the college that is training all their young catering and hospitality specialists. I met many people who are proud of their international backgrounds and still hold on to the food and the traditions that their families brought from their original countries. Maribel, who's also blind, has actually written a book for her children about their Spanish legacy. Cooking does so much to enrich lives. So Charlene, with a background from Malta, was cooking us this amazing Italian dish, but also studying French cooking. And Danny, with whom I made bread, is hugely enthusiastic about the fermented food that she's learned from migrants.
So some of what people found was most important to them, obviously, is their food and their culture that they carry with them in that way. And for a lot of these people, it's traditional to do these fermented products.
Yeah.
And for some of them, they'd be fermenting things, almost in hiding because they weren't supposed to be. So they'd be doing it under sinks or under beds because that was just really, part of who they were.
Amazingly entrepreneurial pastry chef Dre has actively sought a multinational, multi-ability team. It reinforces her whole concept of a family of professional cooks that work together to make the very best food.
Just the different array of people brings such a richness and fullness to what we do.
She's rewarded with a growing following of customers drawn from all over the world. So perhaps cooks and chefs are some of the best champions of diversity. Every day we draw on ingredients from all over the world, which are really easy to find in Australia because of its multiplicity of climates. Melbourne, with more cafes and restaurants per head than anywhere else in the world, is the clear winner. Celebrating international people and food in this gastronomic city is a great source of economic strength, enjoyment and employment. The triple prize. Perhaps the answer to equality and diversity is for chefs and cooks to rule the world, and then everything is going to be all right.
Don't you worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing's gonna be all right. Don't you worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing's gonna be all right. 'Cause every little thing's gonna be all right. 'Cause every little thing's gonna be all right.
Fabulous.
Now, what he wanted was just the uke.
I know.